All right. Hey, welcome to the Connect podcast. Today we're going to clarify the Christian origins of Easter. We're going to debunk the myth that it is rooted in paganism. We're going to get into some of the practices like eggs and bunnies. Where did they come from? And we're going to have a great time together. Welcome to the Connect podcast. All right. I'm Cole Phillips, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host Bobby Frauman. I always fumble that on this because I want to go real German, like Frauman.
Frauman.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. That's the only time.
That's all I got.
That's the only time I blow it is when
Really?
when we're on. Well, not the only time.
Just
I blow
the pressure.
it in general in life, but
The pressure.
I think about it. I'm thinking too
It
hard.
busts the pipe.
And so we're talking about Easter today.
Yeah.
Let me ask you the most important question of all, and that is...
Is this an Easter question?
Yeah, that is Peeps, chocolate bunnies, or jelly beans?
That's easy. Jelly beans.
Jelly beans.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't go with the Peeps. That's pretty much a packing peanut covered in sugar.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I love the...
Don't say Peeps.
No. What I would say, and I don't know how long it's been since I've had one, but sometimes I will have especially I'm going to the convenience store or whatever, and I see it if they have the Cadbury's egg, the cream-filled egg.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
That's
it
good
is.
stuff.
I
But
pretty much eat whatever my kids get
yeah, sugar. I'm all
throughout
about it.
the
I'm all
Easter
about
season.
it.
I got an Easter joke for you.
Okay, good.
My youngest daughter said this to me. She goes, "Dad, why did the baby chick cross the road?"
Why?
To get to go see his peeps.
Oh, that's good.
Go see his peeps.
See my peeps.
See my peeps.
All right. Every year it seems like the same, and it seems to be growing year after year in sort of intensity. But you look at social media, you look at, you're on YouTube, and you see these claims that Easter is just a Christianized version of some ancient spring fertility festival. And so today we're going to break that down, and I want us to kind of begin by setting the stage. We got a video, one such video that I want you to check out right here, where she sort of sets the argument that Easter is a pagan celebration. Check this out.
Easter is completely ripped off from the pagan holiday Ostara. It originally celebrated the goddess Eostre. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce it correctly. She is the goddess of fertility, spring, and rebirth. The symbol for fertility has always been an egg forever, and her spirit animal is a rabbit. So this is where the Easter egg and the Easter bunny comes from. Except when Christians adopted the egg as their Easter symbol in the 13th century, they used to paint it red, which symbolizes Jesus' blood. So nobody really knows when Jesus was resurrected, but Christians decided it would be on a pagan holiday. The people they slaughtered for being pagan.
So she raises some good points that we're going to address, but I would say first, just in response to her, if you find yourself on her side, I would question the side that you're on, because I've noticed the people who are putting out these arguments so often, they're not just they're just not just non-Christians, but they are antagonistic, they're opposed, they're trying to attack Christians, and really trying to attack the resurrection.
Absolutely.
is their motivation that I'm seeing here. And so let's address this kind of point by point. Let's go through and see what we have to say about that, and what does history actually have to say about it. So we're going to start with this. Easter is all about Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, we celebrate Easter because Jesus rose from the grave. He conquered death, conquered sin, and he rose to life on the third day after he was crucified.
Yeah, and that's the foundation of our faith, that he died and rose again. And if he's not risen, that tomb's not empty, then Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15 that our preaching is useless, and so is our faith.
Yeah. And in fact, looking at Luke 24, it says this: on the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. expecting to find the body of Jesus there. But when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. And the angel said, he is not here, he is risen. And that's what it's all about right there.
Like we said, that's the heartbeat of the believer and who we are, that Jesus is alive, that he rose from the dead, and it's not it's biblical, it's historical, and that event changed the course of humanity. Everything.
It was either her or someone else who said, that the Christians. Oh, I saw this yesterday on Twitter, but that Christians did not celebrate the resurrection of Jesus in the New Testament, and I'm saying, what are you smoking? Because that's why literally. The worship moved to Sunday, celebrating the resurrection, and so you see that's what every every worship service, every gathering of believers was about celebrating the resurrection of Jesus, and so we celebrate. It's history, it's verifiable, and it changed everything.
Yeah.
So let's address this pagan myth here. The common myth is that Easter is based on a pagan festival. And hey, listen, you might be listening to this, and you may even be part of our church, and you may have heard these things, and you think, well, what is the response? Is there a defense? Is there a reality? I hope that you'll open your mind to the fact that what you may have heard is not the only explanation. Okay, there's actually a good reason why Christians have celebrated Easter for all these years, and so many times you'll hear it comes from a goddess named Oestra, or that is some kind of spring fertility celebration.
How do you say it?
Oestra.
I guess I've always called it not Oestra, Ostera. I think that's how I've heard it pronounced. But I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I don't know if they know.
I don't know. Let's find out who this person is too. Okay, because as Easter approaches, we encounter these claims, and it also is connected to the goddess Ishtar.
Yeah.
I think we have a meme on this one. We can put this one up. Check this out. It's like it's got that right there. So it says that Easter was originally the celebration of Ishtar, the Assyrian and Babylonian goddess of fertility and sex. Her symbols, like the egg and the bunny, were and still are fertility and sex symbols, because everybody knows about Ishtar, right? And or did you actually think eggs and bunnies had anything to do with the resurrection? After Constantine decided to Christianize the empire, which is a very simplistic explanation of what actually happened, Easter was changed to represent Jesus, but at its roots is all about celebrating fertility and sex. So, I've been to church on Easter Sunday. I can guarantee you, I don't even want to tell you. So I'm about to be 55 years old. So that means
you look great.
That means I've been to. I'll tell you, I've been to 53 Easter years of Easter.
Wow.
And I've never.
You don't miss.
I've never heard them talk about Ishtar. I've never heard a pastor talk about Ishtar. We've never celebrated fertility or sex, even though Connection Church is very fertile. We are very fertile because we have lots of babies in our nursery, and we do celebrate that. We celebrate that within the context of a committed lifelong marriage
married
between
couples,
a man and a woman.
Growing the church.
We're all about that.
Yep.
But I don't remember any celebration of the sort in my lifetime or at any church, any Christian church in the world,
Right.
I'm certain that would go
Yeah.
viral if that were the case. So Ishtar is pronounced Ishtar.
Not Easter.
Yes, and that is an association fallacy, right? So we talked about some celebrities,
Yeah.
who have similar
What
names.
is association fallacy?
Well, so
Is it, hey, I am, because it sounds similar, I'm drawing the conclusion that there's a
that there's the
direct
same or
correlation,
there's some
a direct
connection. Yes. So, for example, Bear Grylls, the survival expert, we love
Yeah.
him, but he's not the same thing as as grilling bear on the Barbie.
Yeah, Michael J. Fox.
He has
he's not a
nothing to
fox.
do with the
the
fox.
red-tailed
So
fox.
there
Tiger
might
Woods.
actually be a
artist
meme
Seal.
here just that we have that says
on and
Ishtar, has nothing to do with Easter. Just because they sound alike, it doesn't mean they have anything in common. Okay. And also, there's no historical evidence that links Ishtar's symbols to eggs or rabbits. Eggs and rabbits don't have anything to do with the worship of this goddess, Ishtar. The name Easter in English and in German comes from this Old English word, Eostre, which refers to a spring festival.
Yeah.
But that is because we speak a language that it's got Germanic roots, but most other languages, Easter is actually this celebration is a variation of the word Pascha.
Pascha.
Yeah, which is rooted in the Hebrew word for Passover. And so most languages don't call it Easter. In Greek, Latin, and Romance languages, it's Pascha from Passover. And the reason why it's associated with the resurrection is because that is the Jewish feast that was taking place when Jesus died and when he rose again.
Have you ever heard of the Old English word ostromena?
Ostromena, yes.
Ostromena. That's likely
The
the
month.
Old English word for the month, the springtime
Yeah.
that Easter takes place.
So an example of that would be that we celebrate in Texas, we have Cinco de Mayo.
Yes.
Which is the 5th of May. We call it that, but we're actually celebrating its Mexican independence, right?
Yeah.
But it's just referred to as the time that it's celebrated. And so that would be a reason why they would call the celebration referring to the time that it was celebrated.
Yeah. So
But
there's no real direct link between Ishtar and Easter, the symbols, the superficial similarities.
yeah. So you've got to have some evidence if you're going to make the claim that there's a connection. You got to connect the dots beyond just, hey, this word sounds like this word, and some claim that someone would make. Okay, so let's talk about that evidence. You know about this 8th century monk named Bede.
Bede.
We'll call him Bede.
Saint Bede.
Yeah.
7th century, yes.
Bede. He.
A bidet to you. A bidet to me. A bidet to you.
So he actually
B-E-D-E.
mentioned this about this Eostre, and yet where did he get that from? We don't know where he came up with that.
Many scholars so he has a writing in the Reckoning of Time, which was written in 725 AD, and this is the only mention of Eostre, or however you say her name, and she is an Anglo-Saxon goddess. So this is this Norse mythology.
Norse mythology.
Okay. This is like Dark Ages is where she might be coming out of. And in his writings out of the Reckoning of Time in 725 AD, he says, that, where is it? Astromena has the name, which is now translated, would you say Pashkal, month, and which was once called after the goddess of theirs named Erostre, in those in whom they honored with feast during their celebration in that month, which would be the spring. Now they call that Pashkal season by her name, using the old name for the new celebration. That's the only mention, that's the only writing of this goddess. And there's many.
So it's really interesting that Christians would change all of their resurrection celebration just to kind of co-opt this like local deity.
There's lots of people who are way smarter than you and I who
There's lots of those people.
Well, for me, for sure. But say that maybe Beatty got it wrong, maybe he misspoke, maybe he was misinformed, or maybe he just made her up. But there's not even mention of her in those times with those people. It's almost as if she is real to the Norsemen, that she was like the less of the gods or goddesses. There were so many other more powerful gods and goddesses that they served at that time that they could have elevated and made it all about.
Yeah. So it was interesting to
More
me. I was
well-known.
thinking about this. Like I'm thinking about the months that we have in our English modern calendar that we, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, these months, August, many of these months are actually referring to gods and goddesses from Roman culture. And so every time we say, it's May 15th or whatever, it would be like somebody saying, well, you're mentioning the name of a pagan god by calling it that. Well, no, we're calling it the month that we've all agreed, using language that we all have agreed on. We're not thinking about the gods and the goddesses as we refer to our months. And just because something happens in the springtime, it doesn't make it pagan. Spring is, the seasons. God has set the seasons into place. And so the pagans can't co-opt and own a season. Spring is when Passover happens, which is exactly when Jesus was crucified and resurrected. So, we're going to use...
the word that we were throwing around, I've heard it say, it's Pashka in my mind for some reason, but you said Pasha.
Pasha.
That's the, that word comes from the Greek word that means Passover.
Passover, okay.
Passover. So that ties, that word Pasha that we're talking about in this context, ties the springtime directly to resurrection.
So that's
and Jesus and the Jewish calendar.
So that's how we determine Easter, the date. And Easter's always funny because
why does Easter
it bounces around?
Why
right?
does
It bounces
Easter
around. Well, it's because it's based on Passover celebration and the days connected to that. And that
because the Jewish calendar it's off a lunar calendar.
Yes.
And it has to do with the moons, where we live off a Gregorian.
Okay.
Right? Is that the solar system?
Yeah.
Look at me.
Look at you.
Look at me.
And
I just pulled
We
that
are
out of my
looking
back
at you.
pocket. Gregorian calendar.
So
taught me
celebrating the
something.
resurrection is Christian at its core. And we celebrate it in the spring because Jewish Passover follows this lunar calendar. And, so we see it bounce around. It's not really some great mystery.
Yeah.
Nobody's trying to hide anything. Jesus rose, and we celebrate that every year.
Yep.
And it's worthy of celebrating. In fact, what we say at the Connection Church is, we celebrate the resurrection every Sunday, but we do want to take a time to really focus in, and we do that at Easter, which is coming up this Sunday. So how about the bunnies and the eggs?
The bunnies and the eggs.
That's the fun stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Hey, fun fact about rabbits.
Okay.
Do you know what months you can hunt rabbits in legally here in the state of Texas? I think it's
March and
nationwide.
April.
Any month that has the letter R in it.
Okay.
So June, July, August.
You can't. Those
you
don't have
can't.
R's.
September you can. October, November,
So
December.
February, January.
April.
So January through April.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then the summer's
But
pretty
you know
much
why? Because that's when they give birth.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you're going to see them come out in the spring
Yep.
more often, and so it's natural that they would get associated with this time of the year.
Yep, exactly.
And so nothing nefarious about that. And so let's talk about the eggs. Let's talk about the eggs. Now, again, as we talk about these things, this is not the spiritual, emphasis that we want to put on the celebration of the resurrection. It's sort of a cultural traditions
Yeah.
and celebrations, that we do, that people do. And I do think that they can detract and distract if we make them the focus of the celebration. And so we're not trying to promote like, hey, everybody, let's all do this. But I will say this, like when we started the Connection Church, our first event was a big community Easter egg hunt back in 2004.
Yeah.
And we had about 800 people show up in the park that day that we connected with, had a great time. It was really miraculous in some ways. And God used it to connect with the community. But I was putting some ads in the newspaper. We read newspapers back then. It's crazy, crazy. And they would take them, throw them out to the different houses. You'd have paper boys and people throwing out newspapers, and but I got a phone call from a guy who lived here in the area who started berating me for having an Easter egg hunt.
wow.
Didn't you know that that this is pagan? And I said, well, thank you for letting me know about that. And I said, tell me, what church do you go to? I didn't say it accusingly, but I was just curious. What church are you a part of? Oh, I'm not a part of any church. I don't go to any church. I said, well, okay, that tells me what I need to know. Like, this is a person who is not following Scripture, is not, gathering together with
Right.
the believers, and like we're told to do. So there are some people who have just, they've just said, I'm going to be an authority unto myself, and I'm going to be a Lone Ranger Christian, and I'm going to judge all the others that are actually out there reaching people and doing what the New Testament tells us to do as believers. So
At least he reached out to you.
yeah,
Now it's
that was
just-
bold. Now you just have the keyboard warriors.
Yeah, the keyboard gangstas on YouTube comments and Facebook comments.
Yeah, people who
section.
make that their life. So let's talk about eggs. Eggs are a symbol of new life.
a source of protein.
Good source of protein. And what happened was people actually gave up, dairy and meat and eggs for Lent, but they would take the eggs and they would hard boil them in order to keep them
Preserve them.
keep them fresher longer. And then when they would break that at Easter, they had an abundance of eggs. And so people would naturally do the kinds of celebratory things, in terms of
Color them.
having
them.
fun. And, it's funny because,
And this is
if
during what time? What time?
well, if you make an association, with, say, eggs, and you're saying, well, they also are used in pagan celebrations. Okay, well, common things are trees, meat, just things that are, not the modern technology that we have, but just the basic stuff of life. There's going to be people who use them for a godly purpose and a good purpose or a neutral purpose. There are going to be people who use them for, pagan purposes or evil purposes. all the same. So it doesn't make the thing. You don't take the thing and just throw it out completely. But yeah, this was back in the Middle Ages,
Wow.
And so the earliest known decorated eggs, painted eggs, came from King Edward I of England back in the 1200s.
Wow.
And he wasn't necessarily, and there could have been some others who were doing it at the same time, but this is really where that came from, and that was long after people were practicing the paganism in that area. So
Yeah.
it's not
That's
a pagan
fascinating.
rite; it's just a practical tradition that has become a holiday
Yeah.
fun activity. But the Easter Bunny,
Same thing. It's kind of the, out of the Easter Bunny really comes out of like a German folklore.
Okay.
And they had this rabbit that would come lay colorful eggs for the kids, and it wasn't brought into the United States or the Americas until 1700s, sometime in the 1700s. And so the first mention of the Easter Bunny, this is fascinating, wasn't until 1500 in Germany and 1700 in the Americas. So we're talking like 1500 plus years after the resurrection of Jesus, the Easter Bunny
Yeah.
hops up onto the scene.
Yeah.
It's just a tradition, a folklore.
Yeah. And so the idea that the bunny is pagan came from the 19th century from a guy named Jacob Grimm, and he just guessed that there might be a connection. He didn't make
Because of
connection.
the springtime, and the rabbits are in plenty at that moment.
In my mind,
Fertility.
Growing up and hearing about the Easter Bunny, I've never seen the Easter Bunny as being a big deal, I suppose. Like I didn't feel like I was never really taught that the Easter Bunny, was real or came and visited. It was just more like an idea of something related. But
Yeah.
but
Well, and
it's
it
no
wasn't
big deal.
even really a bunny. It was a hare,
Okay.
which is a completely different species. They can't even breed together, rabbits and hares. So
Yeah.
it should be an Easter hare, but let's be honest, like that's not marketable at all. Can't make any money off a hare.
So no.
Not as cute as a bunny.
As believers, though, I think these are cultural opportunities to start conversations, open doors, connect with the community, and share Christ. Ultimately, that's what we want to do. And so, as pastors, we want to help families focus on what this time is really about, and that is about Jesus. It's about His resurrection.
Yeah. Well, so I think it would be wise for people to get away from the sexualization that Easter symbols and Easter represents to whatever thought you have in your mind that it ties back to Ishtar or a roast tree.
That's a good point, because that's not helpful to your spiritual health at
But
all.
I will give, there's a huge commercialization with Easter. And I just Googled before we came in here, Americans are projected to spend $123 billion this Easter, which comes out to around $194, $95 a person this week on clothes, on candy, on eggs, and it's an event, it's a holiday that it definitely does distract away from the real reason, the risen King, and attaches a dollar amount to it. It's a way people can market it, make money, and the thing I do love about that is that's where all the people are at egg hunts.
Yeah.
I want to be out at the egg hunts where people are at so I
Yeah.
can tell them about Jesus.
Yeah, I'm surprised really that there's that much money spent, and I feel like if there is, that those are people who are Christians primarily, who are doing something, because a lot of people don't, I feel like Easter's almost fallen off the radar for people, or they don't really, uh, it's not the, it's not as big of a deal in our culture today as it once was. I talked to one guy here at church, who new believer this year, really living for the Lord, and he is from the Valley, and he said, I had to tell my family that I'm not going this year to their Easter celebration because I'm going to church. I'm going to take my family to church.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be at the Connection Church. And he said that, but my family, when they celebrate Easter, that really it's just a drunken, party that they get together, and there's no connection in their minds. There's no connection in their conversation to what Easter is about, to the resurrection of Jesus. And so it's kind of mind-blowing in a sense, to go celebrating Easter apart from the resurrection of Jesus. It just doesn't even, how do they even explain, what they're celebrating or what it is?
It says right here, $22 billion
Wow.
in 2024, projected $23 billion
Wow.
in 2025 for
That's a lot
for
of
an
peeps.
event that Jesus said, I'm coming to die and I will rise again, and if you believe in me, I will give you the free gift on Easter.
Come on.
Easter's all about free.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I would encourage, if you're wondering, like, how do we keep the meaning of this day? One thing I would encourage you to do is read the resurrection story with your family. You can read about the resurrection of Jesus in Matthew 28, in Mark 16, in Luke 24, and in John chapter 20.
Yep.
Those are where the true accounts of what actually happened. And, talk about the significance of what it means that the tomb was empty and Jesus is alive. And even with the eggs, those are a good opportunity to talk about the empty egg with the tomb is empty.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. And so that was something we definitely did with our girls. And
Yeah.
I've got a video of Bethany when she was probably about 8 years old, going through and telling the gospel using plastic Easter eggs, and you talking about Holy Week and all the elements of that. And whatever you do, especially if you're in Hays County or in the Austin area, then we invite you to come to Connection Church at Easter. So Good Friday, we're going to have a big celebration in the park at the amphitheater in Butte City Park.
Oh,
we're
yeah.
so excited. We've been trying to get the green light on that for years, and we're so excited to do that this Friday night. The weather's going to be wonderful. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a little more about what's going to be there?
I'm excited about it because it's going to be a powerful time of worship, communion, celebrating life change. We've got baptisms scheduled in the park, and we get to invite the whole cities.
Yeah, we're going to have
the city of Buda, Kyle, and San Marcos, and experience, Good Friday in a way that we never have been able to before. It's been packed here at the church the last couple of years.
Yeah.
To be able to take it out into the city park, the amphitheater, which they say holds like 12,000, 15,000 people. I just can't wait. It's gonna be exciting.
So we've got activities for the kids. We're going to have a prayer tent there as well for people who need prayer. We got food trucks out there. Plenty of parking. I know a lot of people have concerns about that because they're thinking, am I going to have a place to park?
Oh yeah.
And parking is not going to be a problem.
Nope. There's a huge field. We got a parking team. We're gonna have everything set up. We got shuttles, golf carts running.
All right, and it's gonna, it's the time of the year where it's gonna stay light until close to 8:30.
Yeah.
It'll be light outside, so
It'll be dusk, but it'll be great.
It's gonna be phenomenal. We're so excited about that, and then that's just kicking it off on Good Friday.
Yeah.
Then we got Saturday night service in Buda.
Yes. Sunday.
We've got Sunday. We've got 4 services in Buda, and those service times are 9, 10:30, noon, 1:30. But then at 9, well, let me stop there. 10:30 is going to be our ASL deaf interpretation. At 9 and noon, we got Spanish services also in our separate Spanish services for those who speak Spanish, and they can come at 9 and noon for those. Now, we also have English services at that time at 9 and noon. But then we also have our San Marcos campus. So those service times are 9:30 and 11 in San Marcos. So lots of services and lots of opportunities. I would ask that if you're part of our church, that you would attend Saturday night service or the 1:30 service on Sunday if you really want to make room for all of the guests who are going to be coming in, because it's going to be standing room only. It's going to be very exciting. And just make it a priority to celebrate with us. And if you have another church that you're going to, then go to that church. But be in church to celebrate with believers all over the world. So
that's so good. I love the thought. Let's reclaim Easter versus jump on the cancel bus and try to criticize it and critique it.
Yeah, I don't see that leading to anywhere good.
Yeah,
I don't see that leading anywhere helpful. Now, if you want to celebrate Easter or the resurrection, and you don't want to have eggs or bunnies, then by all means, don't have eggs and bunnies.
Sure, but it's a great opportunity to reach people. So our kids will make little egg bags, and they'll walk around our neighborhood with the invite cards to all of our neighbors and to everyone that we can reach in our neighborhood, and invite them to Easter here at the Connection Church. And we get excited about that. Also, this year we're doing something really cool, looking for ways that we can constantly reclaim Easter and bring Jesus back into the center of it. We're going to do with my family on Saturday night a glow-in-the-dark Easter egg hunt in our backyard. Really excited about that, trying to figure out the details, but my kids want to do it. And they thought it would just be a cool idea. And then my wife and I were like, well, how could we talk about, on Easter, after we get done with the egg hunt, how could we bring Jesus, who is the light of the world, into this glow-in-the-dark Easter
brilliant.
Egg hunt? So let your light shine. Jesus is the light of the world. If you walk in him, you never walk in darkness.
That's making great memories. Great memories.
In the morning, we're going to read. So that night, we'll probably read the resurrection story and talk about how when the sun rose and they went to the tomb and it was empty, that light had overcome darkness. Jesus had overcome death. He had overcome shame. He had overcome sin. So there's ways that you can take those symbols that even if you feel iffy about on the inside, personally, you can reclaim it.
And it's challenging. I just need to say to people who maybe don't get this life, but it's challenging as a pastor with your kids when we're doing Good Friday, Saturday, all day Sunday. We don't want our kids to miss out on these moments, and so we have to be very intentional of carving aside time, making sure that we're focusing in, having some good family time. And you're doing such a great job of that.
That's all my wife.
And Sabrina does an amazing job. We're going to have Easter dinner at 6 or 6:30 on Sunday. So that's when we'll get my mom and Pam's parents and the whole family get to have Easter dinner together this week. But it's not going to be until after the aftermath of all the weekend, and then we'll just get to relax and enjoy dinner together. So just wrapping this up, as we've said and continue to stand on, Easter, not a pagan holiday. It's rooted in the historical resurrection of Jesus, and it's tied to the Passover in Scripture.
Which is during the springtime.
During the springtime.
And Passover changes. Passover can be at
Yeah.
the end of March, the beginning of April. That's why it jumps around.
And
That's why we celebrate it.
the
different
central
times.
truth is Jesus rose, and that's what we celebrate. That's what we celebrate. And if you have never embraced the central truth of the resurrection, then all of this debate is just an intellectual exercise that means nothing. It's all about trusting in the reality of the resurrection, that Jesus gave his life on the cross as a sacrifice for your sin and for my sin, and that he rose again, a real, literal, physical resurrection, and he is alive. And you can say this, you can
Yes.
pray, and you can say, Jesus, because you are alive, I want to follow you. I want to give you my life and live my life for you. Turn from my sin and turn to Jesus. And so thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to join us this weekend. If you can't be here in person, we are online. It's going to be an incredible celebration. And until then, we hope you have a great week.
Yeah.
And we look forward to seeing you very soon.
good.
Have a great one.
Have a great week.